Everybody, looks like we've got a few people just joining us now. Welcome to our webinar. We're going to get started shortly. Thanks for joining us today. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today for our webinar, Enhance Your Resident Experience with Integrated Electronic Voting. We're still waiting for a few more people here to join. We're going to kick it off just shortly after noon. Today's webinar will be recorded, so everybody who signed up will be sent a copy after the webinar has concluded. Still waiting for people to join in here, guys, but just a reminder that today we will be doing a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. So please use Zoom's built-in question and answer function to post any questions that you may have along the way with our either demo or presentation, and we'll answer that during the question and answer period. Hello, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Enhance Your Resident Experience with Integrated Electronic Voting. We're going to get started shortly here in a minute. Just a few things I'd like to cover here at the top. Please remember that this webinar today is being recorded, and we will be sending out a copy of this recording to everybody who signed up to attend today. You can also send that recording out to anybody on your team who may not have joined us today. We'll also be using the question and answer function in Zoom to host a question and answer period at the end of today's webinar. Righty. Thank you everybody for joining us today for our webinar titled Enhance Your Resident Experience with Integrated Electronic Voting. Please note we're just going to start in 1 minute here, and that this webinar is going to be recorded. You will get a copy of this webinar. Once it has concluded, it'll be sent out to everybody who signed up to participate with us today. You can also forward that internally to anybody on your team who might not have been able to join us. We're also going to be hosting a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. So during our presentation today, if you have any questions, please use the built-in Zoom function for the question and answer tool, and we'll make sure we answer any and all questions that you have at the end of the webinar. So our webinar today is titled Enhance Your Resident Experience with Integrated Electronic Voting. My name is Tyler Babcock. I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Concierge Plus, and I'll be your host today. We're very lucky and privileged today to have Frank Valdez, Regional Director USA for GetQuorum, as our panelist today. Just going to give a quick introduction there to Frank. Good morning, Frank. How are you doing today?
Excellent, Tyler. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's begin. So first, some of you may be new to hearing about us here at Concierge Plus. So we're going to talk just very quickly about a little bit about us. So Concierge Plus is a cloud-based resident experience management platform. We've been helping community managers and association managers deliver the ultimate in-class resident experience for over 20 years now. We have over 30 modules at this time to tailor fit your needs for your community with your online tools. We work with thousands of managers all over North America, as well as many from across the globe. And we have been featured in many industry-leading publications and online and in print, and you may have come across or heard about Concierge Plus from there. So when discussing the management of communities and association management, you need to be keeping up and staying proactive. And this all has to do with the tools that you use. An integral part of how you manage your communities are the tools that you're actually using on your data during your day-to-day operations. To remain competitive these days, these tools must be technology-based. Long gone are the days when you can use a spreadsheet printed in a binder that's behind the front desk or locked in a filing cabinet in your manager's office. That's just no longer sufficient. Your tools need to be geared towards saving you time. To be the most effective community managers, you need to be managing your properties proactively and not reactively. Your tools should have built-in time-saving features to assist you as community managers, and as the needs and the requirements on your time are always increasing. Your tools need to be cloud-based so you can set yourself up for success. Cloud-based tools mean you're able to access your tools, documents, data, and any other features your tools offer whenever and wherever you happen to be. Cloud-based tools also eliminate the issues in the past where all of your data was in some filing cabinet in the basement of your front office. Finally, your tools need to be able to wrap themselves around the needs of your communities. You need to be able to track information, alter forms, and be able to customize on the go to ensure that you can stay on top of the ever-changing needs of your communities. So how can Concierge Plus help you provide these tools and stay proactive? Concierge Plus, as I mentioned, has been around for 20 plus years, and we've helped deliver exceptional resident experience management. Our platform allows you to manage your users, manage your property, manage your teams internally, and manage any other external practices that you need to do at your community for your day-to-day. One of the key features of Concierge Plus is our announcements module. Our announcements module allows you to send out notifications to all, some, specific parts of only your resident data set. This allows you to maintain effective and clear communication with your residents without oversaturating people with messages that don't really concern them. As well, we have the ability to send out urgent announcements. And what's different about that for Concierge Plus is the omni-channel delivery. So your announcements go out by email, right? Your eBlast tool. But your urgent announcements not only go out via email, but by SMS, phone call, email, and if you have any of your delivery displays or digital displays enabled on Concierge Plus, they show up as banners on that as well. That omni-channel communication in the case of an emergency or an urgent issue is really helpful to your residents to be able to, and for managers as well, to know and trust that your message is being received when it needs to be received. Speaking about notifications and tracking those with your residents, another huge pain point for community managers are delivery notifications. So long gone are the days where you're able just to get 1 or 2 packages from, Pure Later at the beginning of the day, and that's all you're getting. You're getting UPS, FedEx, Amazon dumping hundreds of packages a day at your front desk area. So these delivery notifications automate inside of Concierge Plus to let your residents know that they've received packages. These delivery reports are tracked, and each interaction is noted there. So not only can somebody receive a delivery notification via email, but just like our urgent announcements, there's omni-channel options as well. Residents can subscribe to SMS notifications or phone calls as well for their delivery notifications. Another way that Concierge Plus can help save you time and help your community stay focused and together is our combined community calendar. What's great about our combined community calendar is it allows you to, as a property manager or an association manager, have an overview of each and every different item that's going on within your community. But every subset of person in your community sees a slightly different calendar. They're only going to see the events that are set up for them to see. So your board might see the board meeting as well as some of the general things for your community and community events, but a regular resident member is only going to see things that are important to them. Along with a 24-hour snapshot, this really helps you as managers and staff stay on top of what's going on in the day-to-day inside of your community, while also providing a great resident engagement tool to add value benefit for your residents. Also, another value added benefit for Concierge Plus is our media library. This is a documents folder or a documents module that is cloud-based that allows your entire property to be able to access the different files that they may need to at any given time. Much like our calendar, you have the ability to restrict who can see what and have access to which. And it's also cloud-based, as I mentioned, which allows access from anywhere on either on your PC or on the Concierge Plus app, or maybe even your own Engage app in the app stores for people to access these files wherever and whenever they are. As I mentioned before, having a cloud-based solution for this and having cloud-based access helps resolve many of the traditional pain points regarding document management inside of your community. And last but not least is integration. So Concierge Plus is lucky to work with many industry leaders and integrate our platform with them. One of the front and foremost is the integration that we have with GetQuorum. So we're able to pass information along to GetQuorum to help them with their online community voting, as well as hosting a virtual meeting. And it's a completely self-contained API and integration that we work with GetQuorum on. Speaking of GetQuorum, I'd now like to turn things over to Frank Valdez to talk to you guys a little bit more about GetQuorum and what they do. Take it away, Frank.
Thank you, Tyler. And again, for all those joining us, property managers, and board members alike, we certainly appreciate your help. I serve on a board myself, and I did work in the management industry prior to this. And so again, thank you for your time today. As far as GetQuorum and who we are as a company, what we came here to discuss today is electronic voting, right? Who we are as a company is an industry leading provider of not only electronic voting, but virtual meetings as well, virtual proxies and meeting notice distribution services. So really, we're really a one-stop shop. We focus on that. Ultimately, we've got a unified electronic voting and virtual meeting platform that is unique to us. It has proven success. We typically achieve 70% or more participation or opt-in rates across these associations. So that's significant because we can help you then achieve quorum, pass bylaws, reduce costs by serving many of these meeting notices electronically versus by mail, and then also run successful governance meetings. We do have a unique integration, obviously not only with Concierge Plus, but also with Zoom. We're an ISV provider. Our software integrates, and that does allow for some features, which I'll discuss in this presentation today, which include real-time voting for those communities that need to vote the day of. We have over 30 industry experts and over 2,000 happy clients and counting all throughout North America. So all throughout North America. We'll skip right in here and walk through what is electronic voting. All right. So for those folks, again, joining us that are probably thinking, what is electronic voting? It's many things, and it's important to discuss that because in the general, electronic voting uses electronic means to cast and count votes, right? I think generally speaking, that understanding is probably universal. But when we get a little bit more granular and we get into the types of electronic voting, that's the important part. That's where the rubber meets the road. There are many different types of electronic vote, and we'll walk through those. An advanced electronic vote is usually an advanced ballot. For many of those condominiums joining us today in the Florida market 718, and then in other markets, many of you send out an electronic ballot ahead of an annual election or ahead of an event. And we call it advanced ballots. We send those to owners. We make sure that they're able to fill those out. And there's a time frame set behind that. And then, of course, the results come in. Usually polls are closed. Meeting is held. Electronic proxy usually has many different forms. A general one, which is just to give powers, general powers over to another constituent, or limited. Usually the limited one is going to notate what they want specifically to vote on. Those proxies are very important because they're usually used to amend documents and associations, and certainly assist with many things such as funding reserves and material alterations in your communities. As far as real-time voting, the last one here, that's significant as well. Many HOAs still have old documents and old bylaws that necessitate real-time voting the day of the meeting. And if not present, a general proxy. We're able to fulfill both, right? So either a general proxy sent in ahead of that meeting, letting them know you won't be there, but you certainly want to count towards proxy, towards quorum. And then if not, you are going to cast a real-time vote if you do attend the meeting through Zoom. In our world, you're able to cast a real-time vote. And we'll walk through some of that. What's a virtual meeting, right? Well, we're in one right now. I'll give you that hint. Virtual meeting is a meeting that's held through usually telephonic or electronic means. I think we're on to, for the most part today, Zoom, right? And some of these virtual components, and not so much the phone. I think it did begin with that. It is online technology. Ultimately, it allows your members to attend, participate in motions, voting, Q&A sessions, just as we're doing today here and universally. You can be anywhere in the world, right? But still participating. There are different types of virtual meetings. I want to point that out just as there were different types of electronic ballots. The virtual only option, right? Very important that we focus on understanding that there are virtual only options, and that's what we're doing today. For example, this webinar has no in-person component. There's not a room where people can meet and log on to it. It is virtual only, right? So that's what we're in today. Certainly communities are moving to that. Why? It eliminates overhead. It eliminates the need for a rental room. And quite honestly, many of the communities, and we service a 5,317 unit HOA, just don't have the room to fit that many owners in, right? And so what do? You can turn to virtual means, and you can go right into Zoom computers from the comfort of everyone's homes, or even if they're traveling, they can certainly attend that meeting. A hybrid option, which is necessitated in many states because of governing statutes, such as the state of Florida and many others, says, hey, you've got to have a location for owners to attend. You've got to have a room somewhere, even if it's a clubhouse or a community meeting room. There has to be an option for the folks that perhaps want to be in person to attend. that's fine. We assist with those as well. We'll talk a little bit more about those because they do require a little bit more work, as you can imagine. But a hybrid meeting ultimately has an in-person component with some sort of virtual component, right? So people are on Zoom, we'll call it, for purposes of this meeting, and there are folks that are going to be in a room somewhere, and hopefully they're being captured by some sort of camera, microphone, and speaker. Again, we'll walk through that in this meeting. So look, ultimately, all this boils down to choosing the right solution for your community. Make sure you read through your bylaws. Make sure that you're certainly, conversing with association counsel, because in many respects, the board will take matters into their own hand and say things such as, we'll only have a virtual meeting, or we'll only have an in-person meeting. Take a look at your bylaws. Take a look at, what participation necessitates for your community, and obviously choose that right solution. It will be integral to overall success. Ultimately, we want to gain participation. If you choose an incompatible solution, if you don't have the equipment, for example, for a hybrid meeting, and you still try to host that, it certainly can jeopardize that meeting. So in most cases, standalone webinar software is not just sufficient. Going at it alone, just buying some webinar software and saying, we're going to try to do this on our own, it's certainly challenging in terms of voting, right? You can probably have a webinar just for informational purposes, town hall, but when you incorporate voting, it gets very complicated from there. So you want to make sure that whether it's virtual, hybrid, or in person, if it's a governance meeting that necessitates voting, that the folks are prepared for that. So choose the right solution, right? Make sure that you can accommodate the nature of whether it's a condominium or HOA. I mentioned earlier, an HOA with 5,000 units might have 10,000 people showing up to a meeting. If they all showed up, do you have a room that's, that large, right? So make sure that you're choosing a solution that speaks to the matters that your association is trying to accomplish. Make sure that as far as electronic voting and a company that can assist you with this overall process, that they have the tools necessary to assist you with electronic voting, with a virtual meeting solution, with a hybrid meeting solution. And then if you do choose an electronic voting partner, that they can assist you with things like tracking attendance, attendee experience, making sure the meeting runs efficiently, electronic voting, as we mentioned earlier, whether it's real time or in advance, and then that the security is there to make sure that everything is running secure. I know for us, one of the big features that our customers love is we're able to send out an individual link to owners that allows them to log into Zoom meetings. So long gone are the days where it's just a generic link that they pass on to many other disgruntled friends, and they log in and you have no recognition of who's even in that meeting, right? So partner up with the technology and software company that can make sure that they're tracking attendance and that they understand which attendees are inside of your meeting to begin with, and they're limiting that to the owners. So this is a fun part for me. I get to show you a little bit of our platform, a really light overview. Certainly, there's always follow-ups to this stuff to get a little bit more granular, but we'll keep it light. We'll make sure there's an overview and you have a general understanding of what electronic voting even looks like from a user experience, a person actually using this, your homeowners, right? Well, it all starts in most cases with what we call the electronic consent collection. What is that? That's going out to your homeowners and to your voters and asking them to opt in or consent to electronic voting. Most states require this. Make sure, again, that you are addressing that with your local governing laws, with your association council, and that you're on the same page and knowing that the first step that you want to do is get consent from owners that they are consenting to electronic voting for your community. I'll take it a step further. What we do here at GetQuorum is ask them to consent to electronic voting and also consent to electronic notices of meeting. Why? We're going to save you a ton of money. We're going to make sure that we're able to deliver those notices in a digital form, getting to those owners anywhere in the world and making sure that really we bring the community up to the 2023 standards. So I'll show you what that looks like here as we walk through it, because it's very important. We'll have that owner be sent an email. They will the email will speak to the fact that the association is allowing electronic voting, that they can opt in with a big blue button inside of their screen there. That link is unique to that owner. That will take them to our integrated software. It will allow them to complete a form with an electronic signature and submit with a big blue button there at the bottom. They can now download a copy of that form. Very important, and they understand that they've just signed a consent to electronic voting and to electronic notices in their community. The date, the timestamp is there, and we will on the back end keep this for record of the association, right? What does this mean? Now you can go out and have these owners vote electronically. The owners will receive an email confirmation and it will go right into their inbox, allowing them to, again, print that or keep that agreement. Really important step. Make sure that your provider is able to assist you with this. We found it insufficient to do this by mail. Many of the other providers have tried to go out and say, hey, we're going to send this by mail. People are going to sign it and send it back. It will affect participation. So definitely try to take care of this digitally speaking. What comes next? Well, what comes next after that is everyone should be ready to receive an electronic notice of meeting. So if you've opted into electronic voting, now you're eligible to receive your notices electronically for any given governance meeting. And I'll show you what that looks like. Really simple. It should be an email to the inbox of these owners. It should allow them really simply to look in their screen and look at their email and receive their official notice. They will have an attachment on this notice. The attachment is the official language from the community, and it does actually officially serve them the notice. On the back end, our system will make sure that we can provide an affidavit, digital affidavit of delivery for these notices. I know that the paper notices usually have to come with an affidavit that they've been mailed out through the post office. Well, we'll make sure that we provide a digital affidavit for notice. So far, we've gone through the consent. We've made sure that we've got an owner opt in, and now we've served them a digital notice from anywhere in the world, basically, that they have access to their email. Well, it's time to vote, right? Let's cast some votes and get on to a ballot here. This is a sample ballot for an annual election. This ballot will certainly usually look like a second notice for those condominiums out there, and it will let the owner have an encrypted link and take them directly to their secure ballot. Once they click on that link, it brings them into our software system and they're ready to vote. Meeting documents are usually via hyperlink right here. They can view those. That content comes from association management to us ahead of time. And when they're ready to cast their vote, they click on the big blue button and get started. They're going to reconfirm ownership information, dive right in to their ballot and begin voting. Real simple. Candidate resumes will be attached here and they will be able to cast their votes. I will point out that there's no overvoting. This system will not allow them to make more choices than the votes that they have. They certainly can abstain from voting. The system will reconfirm that they want to do that, that's their intent. But again, the big problem we see with paper ballots is overvoting, and then the ballot is deemed obviously inadmissible. So they review the ballot in the last screen, they hit submit, and in about 2 to 3 minutes, these owners have voted. They've casted their ballot, they're done. They're receiving an email confirmation with an itemized receipt, just as if they were in a supermarket buying their groceries. Here they are getting an itemized receipt that they can print out with a confirmation number, date, time, everything they voted on, and they can keep that for their records for those owners that feel like that's necessary and might have heartburn over digital process versus a paper process. So in many states, this is required for them to have that receipt. The system now on our end populates these results. Counting is easy for everyone. Meetings are much shorter. So that's what an advanced ballot looked like, something in advance of a meeting. Generally speaking, those are wholly insufficient for things like amending the documents or things such as material alterations. So what we use for those is what we call an electronic limited proxy. And this is what it looks like really quickly. Limited proxy will walk everyone through an experience just like the ballot. They get to complete the proxy again in their screen, their own unique link. They're not being taken to a generic form. We already know who the owner is because they consented and opted into electronic voting. They're going to reconfirm ownership information, dive right into their limited proxy. And here they are voting on funding of reserves, for an example. And of course, in the next screen here, they're voting on bylaw amendments, right? Talk about participation and making it easy for an owner to take care of this ahead of the meeting. So these are usually sent in advance as well. The owner will post their vote, go on to next steps, a lot like the ballot. Here they'll appoint a proxy holder. And in the next screen, they will provide a electronic signature. And once we've captured that electronic signature, we will, again, complete the proxy process, send a copy to that owner. So here's their review. They're going to sign it. And obviously they are on to the rest of their day after this. Email confirmation, copy of the limited proxy, and they are done. So simple, easy, painless, and of course, again, we see over 70% of the owners opt into this, and participation across the board jump through the roof. communities can now amend their bylaws. If it is a proxy and there are owners turning in paper proxies that have not opted into electronic notices or electronic voting, our software will allow for a paper proxy to be uploaded in the system, added to the electronic count. So you have one running tally. Usually this is done by management on the property. They have access to this dashboard and they are able to, again, upload a copy of any paper proxies that were cast by owners who are not voting electronically, have one running count, one running tally. And again, that meeting should go fairly quickly because you should walk in with most of these results as you take care of these things ahead of time. And electronically speaking, the counts are done. So paper proxy tool that addresses any sort of paper proxies in our dashboard that the manager will take care of. So it'll confirm, all done there. And we'll move along here to real-time voting. Just want to kind of, make sure that we understand what you're about to see here. Many communities have come to us over the years and said, Frank, we can only have real-time voting the day of. There's no advanced voting. We cannot send ballots in advance of the meeting. Owners have to show up in the meeting and they have to vote live the day of. And I'll take it a step further. We've got communities that ask for nominations from the floor, right? We've got 5,000 unit communities and the likes that say we have to have nominations from the floor and we have to certainly allow owners to vote live the day of the meeting. Well, we've got the solution for you. It can come by way of a Zoom meeting that GetQuorum can assist you with hosting with a virtual meeting moderator. We'll send a link out to these owners that have opted into electronic voting, and they certainly can vote real-time live. And I'll show you what that experience looks like. The owner receives an email. It allows them to go into a meeting portal. They haven't had to download software. They haven't had to create cumbersome username and passwords because they already opted into electronic voting and we know who we're allowing in this meeting. And so if they filled out a general proxy ahead of time, the system will recognize that. It will let the owner know we have a general proxy on file for you. Would you like to revoke it? We see that you attended the meeting, and would you like to vote live the day of? They'll click yes or no on that. And once they've done that, join the meeting. Our moderator will assist with, if there's nominations from the floor, updating a ballot. And then when it's time to vote, these owners are voting with the integration of GetQuorum and Zoom, real-time live, again, in their screen. They are not filling out a poll. I want to make that very clear that this is not a Zoom poll. This is not a made-up, voting kind of hack, if you will, inside the system, but it's actually our software integration inside of that Zoom meeting where they actually get to make their selections right there. And much like the email you saw earlier, they are going to be given an option to get that receipt, get a confirmation of their services, and move right along with their votes. So easy, streamlined way, virtually speaking, for real-time voting, even if nominations from the floor are necessary. Again, our moderator can change this ballot real time. Here they're voting on other matters like fully funding reserves and, of course, bylaw amendments if necessary. Real-time voting, the system can accommodate for that. So just a little overview. I won't get too deep into that. And ultimately, there is a dashboard that the manager will usually be accessing to make sure that they understand how many owners have opted in, who has not opted in, what's our quorum count. You will have a quorum counter before these meetings. So a lot of times you go super educated and making sure you have a good understanding of what the numbers look like even before the meetings start. Very important to point out, in most states, an electronic vote counts towards quorum. The owner does not have to attend the meeting. They don't have to show up. Simply by selecting that electronic vote and casting that, they're done. They count towards quorum, and you can obviously manage your meeting better. So we'll move right along here to hybrid meetings, right? Just want to spend a little bit of time on that and make sure that we have a good understanding of hybrid meetings as a whole. And most communities that we've seen, what we're seeing here today, are hosting some sort of form of hybrid meeting. Well, here's our 4 pillars, right, for hybrid meetings. Make sure you've got good audio visual. What does that look like? We'll walk through that in just another slide. Make sure you've got easy and secure voting, right? Both electronically and paper-based for those owners that are not quite ready. Make sure it's quick and accurate as far as attendance counts. Again, we can accommodate for that, but those are the things that you're looking for as a community. And make sure it's equitable participation. We've got associations that had massive participation through COVID, had great numbers, met their quorum counters, and decided to go back in the cave and alienate all those owners that learned how to use Zoom and other technology and say we're only taking, paper-based voting again. And those numbers dropped from 70% to 20% participation, just as before. We probably wouldn't call that equitable. If it's worked, if there is a track record of a system in place for equitable participation, use that. All right. So as we move right along here to audiovisual at hybrid meetings, this is important, probably the most important part of a hybrid meeting. Why? Because many owners struggle with this. They certainly try to get a better understanding of what this looks like, and most of the times they get it wrong. Partner up with a company that can walk you through this, subject matter expert. Look, on the very basic side, and I've been in these meetings myself, and sometimes having Wi-Fi, laptop, speakers, and a microphone might be sufficient in those meetings. Probably not in many, but certainly that's a basic setup. What does most of the standard setups look like? Make sure that the room has a TV or projector as far as the hybrid meeting room that you're going to have people present at. For those not logging in, make sure it has a TV, make sure it has a projector, make sure it has some sort of PA system, something, a microphone, right, that they can speak to with a speaker, and make sure it has a 360-degree camera. So here's what we have found. We have found people either using a laptop or a camera that points out towards the audience and captures all the audience, but never shows the board members and them speaking right from their table. Make sure you've got a 360-degree view, whether it's two cameras or a really nice device out there, and something comparable to this. It doesn't have to be this one, called the Owl. This is a 360-degree camera device that has an integrated speaker and an integrated microphone. You put it down, plug it into a laptop. It is compatible with Zoom. And now you're getting a 360-degree view, microphone, speakers, and you're able to host that meeting. That will work for most, small to medium-sized meetings. Look, on the major full production side, you might need to hire an audiovisual company, somebody that comes into the room if it is that large of a community, and we've got many 3,000 unit HOA communities. You might need a professional company to come in there and think of cameras, 4K, you name it, the works for that meeting if it makes sense. So look, as far as hybrid meetings, and GetQuorum, how we manage those, it's real simple. We provide a virtual meeting moderator. We provide somebody that oversees, as you see here, the entire process. And then where this should start, this journey, is with people checking in, virtual meeting attendance, and then over to the virtual meeting attendees, and everybody really sharing this experience all together. Camera, microphone, speakers, all working in harmony. So here's some do's and don'ts. All right. I love these because especially the don'ts, but the do's are very important. We'll start off with the do's. Do choose a suitable platform and vendor. Make sure your vendor can provide everything that we've walked through today. I promise you, if you shortchange some of these steps, whether it's GetQuorum or someone else, it will be a very challenging experience for you. Do adjust your meeting for your desired format. Make sure it makes sense, right? If it's a 30-unit community and a laptop is sufficient in a small meeting room, fine. Make sure that you do communicate with owners and collect consents early. Please go out to your community. Try to do that about 30 days in advance, if not further out, and collect consents. Do be prepared to solve technical issues quickly. If you're going at it alone, make sure your property manager or someone in the room is well-versed in this. If you would GetQuorum, we'll provide the technical expertise to assist from a moderator perspective. They will log in virtually to this meeting and try to assist with those tech issues. Do ensure everyone can participate equally. Again, equity, it's all about participation and making sure we're driving that. And do hold a dress rehearsal. Very important to log on a little bit before, whether it's 30 to 45 minutes. Make sure everything works. Make sure that's not the day the Comcast guy or your cable provider, whoever they are, decided we're going to work on the lines outside, and we're going to take care of all these lines and redo them. Make sure everything's working ahead of time and you've got a backup plan in place. As far as the don'ts, pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to walk through them. Don't exclude anyone. Okay, we're in a world now where the hybrid system is working. Virtual is here to stay, and certainly the in-person component hasn't quite gone away, but it's a transition period. So try to do both if possible, and don't treat the virtual portion of your meeting as an add-on. Many communities say, hey, this is just an add-on. Drop a laptop somewhere, open it up, make sure it has a camera, and that will capture an audience of 40 to 50 people and hear all of them. It probably will not. So don't treat the virtual portion of the meeting as an add-on. Get with a professional provider that can certainly assist you in making sure that this goes properly. And I've spoken to many great management companies that are well-versed and many property managers that are well-versed in this field. So ultimately, what meeting format makes sense for you? For most communities, it's either a fully virtual or an in-person component, right? They've kind of teetered to either or. If it's a hybrid, great. Make sure it works. Implementing electronic voting is certainly strongly recommended. Again, I'll repeat this again, said it about twice. We get over 70% participation from electronic voting. With that type of data, you're going to be hard pressed to alienate owners that want to vote electronically in your community. I'll take it a step further. Your legal counsel might advise you as a board of directors for those boards out there to adapt electronic voting. Otherwise, you may be discriminating or alienating against owners that do want to participate and you're not allowing them to. Do make an educated decision when it comes to what's best for your community. And in most communities, owners will prefer virtual options. They can do it from their phone. They can do it from a camera. And again, get a provider that can help you. So I'll wrap it up there. I do want to thank the audience here early, and I'll turn it back over to Tyler as we move right along.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Frank. Lots of great stuff in there. And again, I can see how many of our attendees here today are learning quite a lot about electronic voting and hosting a hybrid meeting. So what I'd like to do now, let's just take a look here. Oh, there we are. So what I'd like to do now is, much like Frank was, let's just take a quick look at Concierge Plus and the resident experience tools that we talked about before and how we can help you manage your community effectively. All right, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to take a look at a fictitious community here at Concierge Plus called Garment Lofts. Awesome. So again, we're taking a look at some of the things that we're able to do. We're going to focus on those tools that we mentioned before, but what we're looking at here is when we first logged in as a property manager's dashboard, when they first log into Concierge Plus. You're able to see that many of the things that are up to you for the important tasks of the day are highlighted. You're able to see a quick overview of the today's notes, and then a 24-hour snapshot I mentioned before of things that are going on within your community. The first tool that I'd like to highlight in Concierge Plus that we talked about is the announcements module. So when you are sending out an e-blast or an announcement, you have a couple of really cool time-saving features and functionalities inside of Concierge Plus. If you're going to send a notification, you're able to decide, first and foremost, your target audience. You're able to really focus on who you're sending this notification to avoid any unneeded extra communications that clog up people's inboxes. If you send people too much, we found that they just don't respond at all to these communications. So being able to target and be effective with your communication helps get your message across. Again, self-explanatory, doing a subject and a message. All of the regular messaging and text creation tools that you'd need are here and available. You have the ability to upload files to Concierge Plus or to pull from the media library to attach to your announcement. At the same time, you can even create a community calendar event for this notification at the same time. So instead of having to go to two places and having to perform two different tasks, you can do it all at the same time using our announcements tool. Last but not least, when you go to publish the announcement itself, you're able to decide whether or not you want to send this announcement now or at a later time. This is extremely helpful for property managers because you don't always have the time to be at your desk, or a community manager to be in the office right when you need that announcement to go. You can set it up ahead of time. You can get it ready, cue it to go, and forget about it and not have to worry about that any further. I also want to talk about creating an urgent announcement on Concierge Plus. As I mentioned before, it looks a little bit different than when you are creating a regular announcement. And that's because the message not only goes out via email, but it goes out by text, SMS, it goes out by a virtual phone call, right to people's landlines or cell phones, as well as any displays that you may have active in your community. So what constitutes an emergency is up to you guys. Again, it depends on the different communities that you have or that you manage, but you're able to really send out an urgent communication that you can be sure that it is being delivered with omni-channel communication. Let's talk a little bit more, as I mentioned too, in terms of notifications regarding delivery notifications. So delivery notifications are obviously very helpful to keep track and keep people honest about when things are delivered at the front desk to the building. Inside of Concierge Plus, as packages are being logged, every step in the communication is being tracked. You can do that by clicking the view details. So here we can see that Melanie Mendoza was sent a notification about a package waiting to be picked up. However, it was sent via SMS, but currently her email that we have on file is invalid. So not only is that tracked, and you'll say, well, we went to send you an email, but the email that we have on file for you is no longer correct. You can edit and fix that right from here, and you're going to have that notification history for each and every delivery and each and every method that is sent out. So if this person had phone calls, SMS, or emails, you can see here, all of those are going to be tracked and noted inside of Concierge Plus. We've talked about it a few times, but let's take a look at your community schedule. So I'm actually going to quickly click back over to the daily overview for just 1 second, because the highlight of the 24-hour snapshot is also there available on your landing screen as a manager. But not only for you as a manager, that's available on the home screen, which is the landing page for residents. They're going to see the upcoming events posted to them in a content block right when they log in the very first time on the screen. And as well, they'll be able to view that calendar and bring them over to their own custom and personalized calendar. When creating an event on the calendar, you're able to delineate who is actually able to see this community event. You can title it, categorize it, have it set up for multiple days or single days, setting up the actual hours of the event, and set up repeat options as well. Again, all geared around saving you time when using Concierge Plus. Last but not least, I want to highlight the media library. The media library is a place for your association documents, any Word files, PDFs, images, contracts, board meeting minutes, you name it, that's there for you. When you're creating folders inside of Concierge Plus, much like the community schedule, you're able to restrict the access to specific groups. So if you wanted to make a board documents folder that only the members in the board member group can see, no problem. You create that folder, then you put all the meeting minutes, you put all of the contract, bids and things of that nature that only they really need to see. You're able to control this in a very easy manner as a property manager. And then your residents, staff, your board members can all access these documents whenever, wherever via the cloud-based options that we've talked about, either on their PC, on the Concierge Plus app, or your very own Engage app. So that's it for my little demo and walkthrough of the Concierge Plus features. What we'd like to do now is open up the question and answers to any questions that you guys in the audience may have. So again, as I mentioned, we're using the question and answer function here today in Zoom. So if you have any questions for us about anything that you've seen here today about Concierge Plus, about GetQuorum, please post those in there and we'll get to them. All right, just opening it up now, see a couple of questions in there. Let's go through and answer some of these. So the first question here is for GetQuorum. It's from Matthew. Matthew asks, if you have what type of participant, well, actually, I think Frank has kind of mentioned this one once or twice already, but we'll still definitely answer this question here for you, Matt. What type of participation will my community see when adopting electronic voting?
Definitely. And thank you for asking that, because we can't highlight that enough. That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's about participation, right? Because all this great technology and software goes nowhere without the owner engagement and participation. For the Concierge Plus platform specifically, and through GetQuorum. So GetQuorum, ultimately, which is what I'm speaking to today, on average, throughout our 2,000 communities, we see a 70%. I'm seeing a lot of 80s these days as far as participation rates. That's massive. That's huge, because you should be cutting down on your printing and postage budget by about 70 to 80%. And we should be budget neutral at worst.
Thank you very much for answering that. Our next question here comes from Nancy. It's for Concierge Plus, talking about, our question is about sort of the document sharing that we have. Nancy's question is, are you able to publicly share documents like floor plans to public members? Actually, we are. So I'm going to quickly zoom back over to Concierge Plus here for a second. But when uploading a document, what you're able to do is when you upload the file itself, you're able to make the file public. And what that means is that on your public facing website with Concierge Plus, you can have a documents and downloads area. What this will allow you to do is post documents, like you just said, floor plans on the public facing website as a content widget for people who are not in the community to access. So again, that is a common thing that many people do using Concierge Plus and the custom public facing marketing website that we offer. Great question. All right, next question here is from Kim. How does GetQuorum integrate with Concierge Plus? Actually, it's kind of a question for both of us. So I'll quickly start off on that one. So the way that it works, Kim, is that Concierge Plus and GetQuorum work together to obviously help you set up your electronic voting or your meeting. Concierge Plus gets queried by GetQuorum, and we provide them the owner information to help populate those campaigns that GetQuorum sends out. So all of those electronic votings, who's supposed to be in the meeting, all that kind of stuff, that data can be pulled right from Concierge Plus to avoid you guys having to do that yourself and submitting that information to GetQuorum.
Just to add to that, Tyler, it just perfect explanation. But just to add to that, yes. So the process starts with making sure that we have a good understanding of the current owners. And to Tyler's point, where do we get that information, that update information from Concierge Plus to import it, make sure that we can begin the campaign of collecting consents, right? We go back to the beginning of that demo and we said, hey, we got to go out to owners and collect consents and ask them to opt in. Well, we do that with the information from your current roster and ownership from Concierge Plus.
Great question, Kim. Thank you very much. Next question here is from Justin. For GetQuorum, our association CAM is attempting to block us from using electronic voting and is claiming that, in quotes, attorneys have advised her company not to use electronic voting. But it's pretty clear that it is perfectly legal and popular in Florida. Have you run into this problem before? And any advice for getting past this with the CAM or the management company?
Look, ultimately, yes, we've heard of those stories before. We've heard of people calling us saying there's voter suppression out there, right? And certainly it's up to you as owners of a community to go to your board members as constituents and let them know the information that you're collecting out there. Ask them to bring on a system that is safe, that is secure. They might have come across some demos and some other systems that they did not find any comfort around. We do provide free demos, free Zoom meetings for these board members to educate them a little further. And I would point them back to the CAI as kind of the master and holder of information for not only Florida, but many other states. Ask them to not just confer with the attorney, but to go back to the Community Associations Institute, a very, very well-known and respected, information, component, and ask them how their feelings are in electronic voting as a whole, what they've seen, what kind of numbers they've seen. If you're in Florida specifically, in your condominium, ask them to confer with the Office of the Ombudsman, the DBPR. The DBPR and the Office of the Ombudsman are very familiar with electronic voting, and certainly while they don't go out there and say, hey, we are going to support this in an official way, they've dealt with us in many respects. They've worked with electronic voting. They've seen the numbers that have been populated from it, and they're very comfortable around it, and they understand the statutes do deem it legal. Look at 718 and look at the statute 721 if you're in Florida for electronic voting specifically.
Thank you very much for answering that one, Frank.
Sure.
Next question is coming in from Dawn. Back to the media library. You have a link for board documents in your media library, but is that hidden? Yes. So that folder itself, Dawn, is actually not even visible to people who don't have access to it. So if you make one just for property manager documents, only the property manager is going to be able to see that, or anybody in the property managers group. Same for the board. Again, those folders are hidden, and all of the subsequent documents and directories underneath it are hidden from view as well. That means your residents are only going to be served the documents that they need to see. Again, if you've got a board member, they're going to see a little bit more potentially than your residents, and property managers obviously are going to see everything. Great question there, Don. Another question coming in from Kim. Will you be sending a copy of this presentation to everybody who attended? Yes. We're going to send out a recording of this webinar after it's completed today for everybody who's attended, and also for everybody who signed up but wasn't able to attend with us today. We've got one or two other questions that we'll quickly touch on here. So another question here for GetQuorum, this one from Jim. What are the costs involved with getting electronic voting or virtual meeting in my community?
Excellent question. So it's usually a few dollars per door per 12-month period for the year, I'll call it, right? So it usually boils down to, depending on the size of the community, of course, then it can certainly look like a few dollars. And of course, if it's a very small size community, it could look like, $10 to $15 per door, depending on that size. Obviously, there's certainly savings in volume. 3,000 unit community can probably expect to pay less than $1, if not, $1 per door per year. It's certainly just a few dollars. And again, that cost is supplemented by the fact that when you get those owners to opt into electronic notices and electronic voting, notices are usually running for about $4 to $5 these days per notice. In about the cost of 2 notices, you'll have paid for electronic voting, budget neutral at worst, it should be. So that's what you're looking at.
Thanks for that. Looks like Justin popped in a very similar question just as you started typing it there, or rather you started answering it there. So again, Justin, if you have any other questions about specific costs, reach out to Frank and the GetQuorum team, and they'll give you the exact specifics for your community.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we're going to answer the last question that we have here again for GetQuorum. This one from Steven. How long does it take to set up electronic voting at my community?
Excellent question, right? Because ultimately we want to have a great timeline around this and make sure that we're ready and prepared for a voting event. Typically, we want 30 days out, and that's 30 days before any vote is, or any first notice, ideally. Sorry, let me walk that back. So any first notice. So if you've got a notice being sent out for an annual meeting in your condominium, and it's usually sent, somewhere in that 60-day period or so, contact us at the 90-day period. And certainly we can assist you with getting owners opted in and then getting that first notice sent digitally to begin the savings at that point. Look, we've been contacted many times beyond that first notice, and that's fine. We'll just have less of an effect on sending out notices. We might only be sending your second notice out with an electronic ballot. But again, we want to set a period of about 30 days to make sure that we've not only imported your updated roster from Concierge Plus, but that we've also reached out to these owners and nudged them and reminded them that they do have the option to opt in to electronic voting. We can walk through all those steps for any specific community a little bit more further in a phone call or a Zoom.
Awesome. All right. Well, that comes and brings us to the end of our questions and the end of our webinar today. I want to thank everybody who attended today. Obviously, I want to thank Frank for being such a fantastic panelist and presenter. As I mentioned, everyone, this webinar is going to be being recorded and will be sent out to everybody who attended today, as well as everybody who signed up and may not have been able to attend. Any other follow-up questions that you guys can think of, feel free to contact either GetQuorum or Concierge Plus, and we'd be happy to answer them at any time. Thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Take care. Have a good one.
Great day. Happy Wednesday, guys.
Bye-bye.